Staff Sergeant Riley Morgan had spent 3 years repairing trucks and staying unnoticed at Falcon Ridge Base. Fellow soldiers called her Wrench, always smeared in grease, always keeping quiet. But when hostile forces seized her SEAL team, Riley received an encrypted directive: execute Protocol Valkyrie. The enemy didn't realize the silent mechanic had been a covert Delta Force operator for 8 years, and they had just made their final mistake. The morning began like any other at Falcon Ridge Base, buried in the harsh mountains of Dravonia's contested region. Staff Sergeant Riley Morgan, 27, crouched beside a Humvee engine bay, her hands darkened with oil, brown hair tied back in regulation style. The motor pool was her world, a maze of garages, supply depots, and vehicle bays maintaining everything from armored carriers to convoy trucks. She had carefully built the image of a quiet technician who could repair anything with an engine. It was the perfect disguise for someone who had to remain unseen. What no one else knew was that Riley Morgan carried one of the deadliest arsenals of skills in the U.S. military. Before being reassigned to maintenance, she had been Staff Sergeant Riley Phantom Morgan of the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, the Army's elite strike unit. 47 confirmed eliminations across 6 black operations in 4 countries, an expert in close combat, long-range precision fire, explosives, and what intel reports labeled as targeted removal protocols. She could end a life barehanded, with a rifle from 800 meters, or with makeshift weapons crafted from shop tools. But 3 years earlier, Operation Iron Dagger had collapsed. Faulty intelligence, exposed assets, and political fallout had forced Riley into deep cover, her record rewritten as a voluntary shift to support work due to combat fatigue. In truth, she had been hidden away, waiting for the day her specific talents were required again. That moment had come. At 1,400 hours, Riley was tightening a timing belt when her encrypted phone buzzed with a message only 12 people alive could transmit. The words were short. Package compromised. Execute Protocol Valkyrie. Authorization Omega 7. Riley's grip stayed firm on the wrench, but her mind shifted instantly from mechanic's routine to operational planning. Protocol Valkyrie was a shadow directive buried deep in intelligence archives, granting authority to use any means required to recover captured assets when official rescue was impossible. Someone had taken her team. She walked calmly into the comms hub where Sergeant First Class Bennett monitored radio channels. "Bennett, I need access to the patrol summaries from last night." "Why would Motopool need patrol reports?" Bennett asked, skeptical. Riley's face stayed unreadable. "Cross-checking vehicle wear logs. Need to track which patrols are stressing the fleet." Bennett hesitated, then pulled the files. Riley scrolled fast until a line made her blood freeze. SEAL Team Bravo had left at 2,200 hours on Recon Mission Shepherd's Watch. Scheduled return 0600. Current status, no contact. 8 hours late. In hostile ground, that meant capture or death. Riley returned to her bay and triggered protocols untouched for 3 years. Hidden beneath her bench was a secure cache no mechanic should own. Encrypted sat phone, covert gear, and a personal weapons kit rivaling special operations arsenals. She keyed the sat phone to a number that did not officially exist. "Control, this is Phantom." "Package status?" "Phantom, package compromised." 6 assets confirmed captured by hostile forces. Grid reference 41.7258 north, 44.6372 east. Enemy force estimated 40 plus. Conventional rescue impossible. Riley felt the old calm return, the mental state that had made her one of Delta's most effective killers. "Control, requesting full tactical suite and live intelligence." "Negative, Phantom. Off the record. No support, no backup, no acknowledgement." "Do you accept mission?" Riley glanced around the garage where she had lived 3 years in disguise. "Affirmative, Control. Initiating prep." "Phantom, confirm you understand this is voluntary. No extraction. If exposed, you are rogue." "Copy," she answered flatly. "Understood. Phantom out." Riley ended the call and began preparations that would turn her from quiet mechanic to executioner in under 4 hours. The captured SEAL unit was held in a fortified complex 23 miles inside hostile ground. Satellite scans revealed a repurposed mining site with natural defenses, high elevation, narrow approaches, and open fields of fire on all sides. Worse, intel showed around 40 enemy fighters inside, veterans of 2 years of combat against U.S. forces. These weren't rookies, and they weren't sloppy. Riley analyzed the situation as she assembled her kit. A standard assault would demand a full company with air support. She had only herself, the night, and the advantage of surprise. It would have to suffice. At 1800 hours, Riley walked to the motor pool office with a signed requisition. "Sir, I need to run the repair truck for a parts pickup." Supply convoy busted the transmission on Unit 7, and they're waiting for components from Forward Operating Base Kodiak. Major Harlow barely skimmed the form. "How long?" "Overnight, sir. Longer if the stock isn't available." "Fine, just get back before morning formation." Riley nodded and left. Major Harlow had just unknowingly cleared a black mission. The repair truck, a modified M1078 cargo hauler, had been her side project for 6 months. Officially, it was in routine maintenance. Secretly, she had rebuilt it into a mobile weapons rig with hidden armor, secure comms, and storage for tools that didn't exist in Army manuals. At 1900 hours, Riley rolled out through the checkpoint in grease-stained coveralls and boots. Guards waved her past without question. Wrench was only fetching parts. Nothing strange about that. Once beyond the base's sight line, Riley stopped and began her changeover. The coveralls came off, replaced by tactical clothing tailored for stealth. Her boots were swapped for specialized combat footwear with sound-suppressing soles. The regulation bun was tucked beneath a helmet with night optics and comms. From concealed panels in the truck, Riley pulled out her arsenal and 416 Hong Kong dollars with suppressor and advanced sights, a Remington 700 tuned for long-range precision, a Glock 19 with extended mags and match ammo, tactical vest with ceramic plates, a demolition kit with remote charges, Ned gear for downed teammates. Most critical was a small black box that looked like a radio but carried classified tech capable of jamming comms and blinding surveillance systems. Riley inspected each item with the discipline that had kept her alive across dozens of missions. Every weapon was dialed in, every tool checked, every plan rehearsed. At 20:30 hours, she began her infiltration. The land was merciless, jagged ridges, sheer ravines, unstable rock that could betray a step. Riley moved unseen, blending into the terrain with fieldcraft that made her a ghost in the dark. After 2 hours, she reached an overwatch perch 800 meters from the compound. Through her scope, she saw the field clearly. The base sprawled around a central yard, ringed by concrete structures. Guard towers at the corners overlapped fields of fire. Sentries walked their posts with professional precision, shifting routes unpredictably to deny patterns. Even worse were the technicals, trucks fitted with heavy machine guns, positioned to crush any frontal attack. This wasn't a camp. It was a fortress built for real war. Riley spent half an hour logging every detail: tower coverage, patrol cycles, radio stations, soft points. The defenders had prepared well. A straight assault would end in blood and failure. But Riley wasn't here for a straight assault. At 2,247 hours, Riley made her opening move. The compound's generator sat 200 meters downslope from the main facility, ringed by chain link and guarded by a lone sentry. She crept in from its blind side, silent across uneven ground. The guard never sensed her presence. Her knife struck with surgical accuracy, quick, quiet, final. She dragged the body behind the housing, hidden from discovery for hours. Riley set her first charge on the fuel line feeding the generator. The blast would cut power, kill lights, sever comms, and blind their electronic security. Phase 1 complete. Time for Phase 2. Riley moved around to the weakest sector, where jagged rock gave cover right up to the fence. 2 guards patrolled here, but their circuit was predictable. She waited until one passed her position, then shadowed close. Her blade ended him before he could respond. The second, alerted by a faint sound, turned to find Riley's suppressed rifle aimed at his chest. The muffled crack was barely audible. Riley was inside the perimeter. Moving between buildings, she identified the prison block, a reinforced structure with barred windows and heavy security. Through a window, she saw her SEAL teammates bound under guard, showing marks of interrogation. They were alive, weakened but mobile. Her mission shifted from body recovery to live rescue. She planted further charges at 3 critical sites: the main tower, the comms hub, and the motor pool. When triggered together, they would sow panic, cripple coordination, and clear her extraction path. At 2,334 hours, Riley struck. The generator blast dropped the compound into darkness. Emergency lights flickered weakly, but the grid was gone. Seconds later, her charges detonated, tower collapsing, comms erupting in fire, vehicles burning in twisted ruin. Riley moved through the chaos like a phantom. Enemy fighters spilled out, shouting orders, scrambling for defense in the dark. But with night vision, she had complete dominance. She saw them clear while they flailed blind. Her rifle whispered death, each suppressed shot finding a head or chest, explosives wiping out heavy weapons. The commander tried rallying, but his radios were jammed, and his troops fell faster than they could react. Riley had turned their fortress into a killing ground where she dictated every move. Reaching the prison block, she saw militants firing blind into shadows, desperate to hit the invisible threat. They shot at nothing while death closed in. Riley cut down the exterior guards with flawless precision, then breached through a side entry, clearing rooms one by one. Inside, defenders set an ambush at a hallway choke point, expecting her through the main corridor. Instead, Riley blew a man-sized gap in the wall. Before the dust settled, she was inside, weapon raised. 4 men died in under 3 seconds, each dropped by center mass hits before pulling triggers. Lieutenant Commander Riker looked up from where he was tied to a chair. "Took you long enough, wrench," he muttered with a grim smile. "Had trouble finding parking," Riley answered, slicing his restraints with her knife. She freed all 6 SEALs and armed them with weapons stripped from the dead. They were battered but capable, which was all she needed. "What's the count outside?" Riker asked as Riley patched his wounds. 40 enemies, down to about 25. Grids down, vehicles gone. We move before they regroup. Extraction? On foot. My truck staged 2 clicks north. Riker stared hard. "You cleared this fortress alone?" "Job description changed," Riley said, handing him a rifle. "Can you move?" "I can fight." "Then we're leaving." The extraction kicked off at 0012 hours. Riley guided the SEALs through the compound using paths she'd memorized during reconnaissance. Bodies of militants lay where she had left them, grim proof of her lethal efficiency. At the main gate, they hit resistance. Survivors had mounted a machine gun. Riley ended the crew with a perfectly tossed grenade, then laid down covering fire as her team pushed through the gap. Beyond the walls, enemy fighters tried pursuit on foot, but with their trucks destroyed, they had lost mobility. Riley had turned a mechanized unit into scattered infantry stumbling through dark terrain. The 2-kilometer trek to her extraction vehicle demanded careful movement across hostile ground, but Riley's escape and evasion training kept them slipping forward without pause. By 0147 hours, they arrived at her hidden truck. The SEALs stared wide-eyed at the modified machine, bristling with covert gear. "What have you been doing these last 3 years?" Riker asked as Riley fired the engine. "Vehicle maintenance," she answered flatly. The drive back took 40 minutes through winding mountain roads that tested both the truck and her handling. Behind them, flames still raged at the compound, a funeral blaze for militants who had underestimated a mechanic. They reached Falcon Ridge Base at 0230 hours. Riley drove straight to the medical wing where the SEALs received treatment. While medics worked, Riker pulled her aside. "I need clarity," he said. "My team was held by superior numbers in a fortified base. A conventional rescue would have needed a company with air cover. Yet one person leveled the site and brought 6 men out without friendly losses." Riley weighed her words. "Sometimes unconventional problems require unconventional answers. That's no answer. It's the only one I can give." Riker studied her expression, seeing in her eyes the same mark carried by other shadow operators, the weight of things never recorded in reports. Understood. But Riley, thank you. You saved us tonight. Just doing my duty, sir. Riker smiled. Motor pool sergeant, right? That's what the paperwork says. 3 hours later, Riley was back in her bay, hands black with grease over another engine. When soldiers asked about her overnight parts run, she pointed to transmission components supposedly brought back from forward operating base Kodiak. No one questioned the scratches on her truck or her exhaustion. At 0800 hours, Major Harlow appeared. Morgan, I heard SEAL Team Bravo had trouble last night. Their vehicles will need full inspections. I'll handle it, sir, Riley replied without glancing up. Good. And Morgan, solid work keeping the fleet running. We'd collapse without reliable mechanics. Thank you, sir. Once he left, Riley allowed a moment of quiet pride. 40 enemies gone. 6 Americans alive. A fortress erased from the map. And on record, Staff Sergeant Riley Morgan had spent the night fetching truck parts. Her encrypted phone buzzed with a final message. Package delivered. Well done, Phantom. Riley erased the message and went back to her engine work. Tomorrow would bring new breakdowns, new vehicles to repair, new excuses to stay invisible while waiting for the next time her country needed a ghost. The other soldiers kept calling her Wrench, never imagining their quiet mechanic had just carried out one of the most successful solo rescues in military history. Riley liked it that way. The best mechanics, like the best operators, were the ones unnoticed until something critical failed. And when it did, they fixed it permanently. 6 months later, Lieutenant Commander Riker submitted Riley for the Silver Star, the nation's third highest award for valor. The paperwork was classified, and the ceremony took place in a secure facility far from cameras. Asked to speak, Riley kept it short. Some problems can't be solved with standard methods. Sometimes you need someone who works differently, thinks differently, and isn't afraid to get dirty. The mission succeeded because we used the right tool for the job. The officers applauded, aware they were seeing something rare, a soldier who could vanish back into cover without ever revealing what she'd done. After the ceremony, Riley returned to Falcon Ridge Base and her motor pool. There were trucks to maintain, engines to rebuild, and a disguise to maintain. But the mission had shifted something in the air. Rumors of SEAL Team Bravo's impossible rescue spread quietly, sparking speculation about how 6 operators had been freed without a single friendly loss. Intel confirmed the enemy fortress had been annihilated by one infiltrator using methods beyond doctrine. Foreign analysts called it operationally impossible and tactically unprecedented. 3 weeks later, Riley was under a Humvee hood when a black SUV with diplomatic plates rolled into the bay. 2 men in plain clothes approached, posture betraying their intelligence ties. Staff Sergeant Morgan, we need to discuss your recent overtime, the older one said softly. Riley set down her wrench and followed them into a secure briefing hall used for classified meetings. Inside, she faced a panel of senior military and civilian officials whose clearances reached the deepest layers of intelligence. Sergeant Morgan, a woman in an expensive suit, began, your performance during Operation Valkyrie has drawn attention at the highest levels. We have questions. Riley stood rigid. Ma'am, I don't know what operation you mean. I've been on maintenance duty 3 years. Cut it, Phantom, a familiar voice interrupted. Colonel Adrian Voss, her former Delta commander, stepped in with a sealed folder. We know exactly what happened and why it had to be done. He opened the file, spreading satellite images across the table before and after her assault. The devastation was total, structures reduced to rubble, vehicles wrecked, 40 enemy fighters confirmed dead by thermal scans. Single operator infiltration and extraction, Voss continued. 40 hostiles neutralized, 6 Americans recovered alive, 0 friendly losses, a combat effectiveness ratio that breaks every model we've built. The woman leaned forward. Sergeant Morgan, we're not here to blow your cover or dwell on classified details. We're here because situations like this are increasing and standard responses aren't enough. She tapped a secure tablet showing global flashpoints, hostage crises, and denied zones, asset recovery in politically volatile areas, high-value target eliminations where open military action would spark diplomatic fallout. The world is shifting. Riley, Colonel Voss added. Conventional operations are increasingly bound by politics, media oversight, and international law, yet threats to American interests keep adapting and spreading. Riley scanned the faces at the table, recognizing the same hardened look she had seen countless times in classified briefings, leaders wrestling with problems no rulebook could solve. "What exactly are you proposing, sir?" she asked. "A new category of assignment," the intelligence woman answered. "Deep cover billets that provide plausible roles in strategic outposts, motor pool sergeant, supply officer, admin clerk, jobs that justify your presence while positioning you to act when standard assets cannot." Voss spread out more documents. "We're building a network of operatives hidden in plain sight across global bases, mechanics, cooks, drivers, clerks, personnel who vanish into background noise while staying mission-ready for crises like the one you handled. This program does not officially exist," another official said flatly. "No command chain, no record, no acknowledgement. If compromised, operators are wholly deniable." Riley weighed the file carefully. It was everything she had already been doing, now expanded with resources that could make her vastly more effective. "And my current assignment?" she asked. "You remain Staff Sergeant Morgan, motor pool lead," Voss replied. "But now your maintenance duties cover more than vehicles. You'll be maintaining American interests in ways not fit for official logs." The intelligence woman tapped a display, projecting a world map with highlighted sites, bases in contested lands, diplomatic compounds in hostile capitals, training grounds near vital resources. "Think of it as preventive maintenance," Voss said with a thin smile, finding problems before they become breakdowns. Riley considered. Official units were bound by ROE, politics, treaties. But mechanics worked unseen, fixing failures quietly and permanently. "What's the operational tempo?" "Variable," the woman said. "Some posts may sit dormant for months. Others might demand instant reaction. The priority is staying covered while ready for anything. And if a mission exceeds what I can handle alone, then other mechanics step in," she replied. "Motor pool chiefs, clerks, and supply staff who just happen to carry specialized training, people who know some jobs demand more than a standard toolkit." Riley looked around at the officials holding the deepest clearances in American security. They were handing her unprecedented authority, a mandate to operate in the gray space between policy and necessity. "I accept," she said plainly. Voss shut the folder. "Welcome to the most important duty you'll never speak about, Riley. This nation needs mechanics who fix problems that don't exist on paper." The session wrapped with protocols on communication, logistics, and emergency fallback. Riley learned her parts requisitions would now include equipment far beyond motor pool lists, gear designed to handle problems requiring final solutions. 2 months later, new orders arrived, reassignment as motor pool supervisor at a forward operating base near the contested Durvan Peninsula, a region where 3 countries claimed control, yet none truly held it. The region had become a refuge for militants, arms traffickers, and hostile intelligence services. American personnel there faced constant threats that diplomacy could not defuse. Riley's official duties stayed the same: maintain vehicles, track inventory, supervise repairs. But her true mission was far more complicated: act as the unseen guardian of U.S. interests in one of the most volatile corners of the globe. Her new motor pool boasted advanced garage equipment, vast parts storage, and base servicing everything from bikes to armored carriers. Hidden among standard supplies were assets that any special operations team would envy, tools for situations far beyond routine maintenance. On her 3rd day, Riley got her first activation. Package malfunction requires immediate attention. Coordinates attached. The coded message meant Americans were in danger, rescue was impossible, and she had full authority to resolve it by any means. Riley glanced at her watch, gathered her kit, and prepared to transform from grease-stained mechanic into executioner within the hour. Some jobs demanded specialized repairs not listed in manuals. She had learned the most important fixes often prevented future breakdowns by removing their causes entirely. Driving into hostile ground, Riley reflected on her path: Delta operator, covert mechanic, now something new. A ghost in the system, keeping American power running through actions never logged in official records. The enemy would learn, as others already had, that some mechanics worked on more than engines. They specialized in eliminating threats permanently, quietly, with flawless precision. And Staff Sergeant Riley Phantom Morgan was very, very good at this expanded job. Her tools now went far beyond wrenches. They included the certainty that when the next impossible mission came, when normal solutions failed and official channels could not respond, there was a mechanic who could fix problems others couldn't even define. Adversaries who endangered American lives would discover the hard way: some mechanics do more than service machines. They dismantle threats forever. And Staff Sergeant Riley Wrench Morgan excelled at her work. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Captain Joe's Stories for more incredible tales like this one.